Alrighty, so with the second edition of the Leeds Cup is now over, and we have now saw a new champion in the Leeds Cup. That is the Columbus Crew. I thought this was a perfect time for me to finally do the video where we're gonna look at the good, bad, and ugly part of the Leeds Cup because as much as there were definitely some great moments during the Leeds Cup, there were definitely some bad parts about it, and then of course there are parts that people are going to talk about that is kind of the biggest criticism in terms of the Leeds Cup. And I'm pretty sure some of you probably already know some of the things that are the ugly part of the Leeds Cup this edition. So we start off with the good part. I'm going to just write it down while we go. The games were entertaining. These Leeds Cup game continue to be a spectacle, and especially there's a reason why there's been times where I mentioned Leeds Cup after dark. It's kind of similar to MLS after dark, where nothing just makes sense whatsoever. There's just some crazy kind scoreline, some crazy upsets that is, and I think that is also not a big surprise considering the fact that we knew that these games were going to be entertaining. We knew that there was going to be a lot of people that is going to be talking about it, and hence that's kind of what we saw. There were definitely some crazy moment. There was definitely some surprising upset. And speaking of talking point, I also want to say that this is something that not a lot of people thought that was gonna happen. But I'm just gonna say that the Liga MX fans, in terms of this tournament, they really pay attention to this tournament. Now, I know there's going to be some people that will say that, well, Liga MX fans are still going to say this is a pointless kind of tournament, and it has no indictment in terms of MLS really past Liga MX and so forth. That being said, though, when you also look at the amount of traffic, and especially after when a big Liga MX team got knocked out, I remember when Chivas, of course, suffered a surprising loss against the Quakes, and even Club America getting knocked out of the tournament. It generated a lot of traffic when it comes to the social media. It generated a lot of traffic in terms of the talking point, especially down in Mexico. So for those that think that Liga MX fans didn't care about this tournament, and yes, there are some that say that they didn't really care, and it's kind of a forgettable tournament. Those are kind of just maybe mainly just excuses when their team gets knocked out. When they actually saw their team getting knocked out, especially against an MLS opponent, and sometime in a humiliation factor, oh, they actually talked about it. And I also would say that it's not just Liga MX fans that got attention to this. MLS fans could be included in terms of this. I mean, there were times where I know some people didn't really pay too much attention to the tournament, and they said that we're going to. And then once the tournament begins, yeah, again, those games that were entertaining, that's when it started to become a talking point. And this is kind of what I thought was going to happen. And this is also what can happen when it comes to even in the most controversial tournament play. That while there was a lot of controversy when the game was about to begin, but once the game does begin and once the tournament begin, those controversy are kind of almost put to the side because of these entertaining games that kind of overlap the headlines of all the controversy to begin with in terms of this Leeds Cup. Now the last thing I'll say it's good is that I do think teams took this tournament seriously, and I know that might be debatable because there were some teams that weren't really starting their strongest team. Um, and obviously, I know there are some Liga MX team that also decided to play some of their youth players in this tournament as well. But the bottom line is, I do think that there's no way that these games are entertaining if teams don't take this competition seriously. And keep in mind, one of the things that people keep forgetting in terms of the Leeds Cup is that there's still a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot for upper grab, and this is probably the easiest way to do so because we know that getting into the CONCACAF Champions Cup is incredibly hard, especially in MLS. I mean, you have to win MLS Cup, you have to win the Supporters Shield, you have to also win the U.S. Open Cup, or you maybe happen to be one of the top team to get into this competition, depending on if some other teams are able to win multiple competition to get into it. So this is probably the easiest way to do so because all you need to do is just win a couple of games in this tournament, and you're in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And with that mindset, and not to mention, as I've talked about how there are teams that are struggling in the league, and that this feels like it's a ticket for them to get back to just salvage of what has been a terrible season in league play. It's no surprise the teams really took this competition seriously, and there's a lot of teams that actually really had to go at it trying to win the this competition in a whole. Now let's take a look at the bad about the Leeds Cup, and the first bad is got to be the atmosphere. So the atmosphere was very hit and miss in the Leeds Cup. I mean, there are games where I would say the atmospheres are absolutely amazing. I think those Copa America games were absolutely amazing. I know when the Quakes play against Chivas, those Chivas fans definitely made a great atmosphere, and even in the game between Seattle and Pumas, a rematch of the CONCACAF Champions Cup final a couple of years ago. The atmosphere was amazing. For that game itself, pretty much most of the Columbus game were pretty good in terms of atmosphere, especially the final that is. But for all good atmosphere in terms of those games, there were games where the atmosphere was absolutely horrendous, and part of that is because there was a lot of empty seats in the stadium, and there were some support group that just outright doesn't want to attend the game, so you don't get that strong atmosphere that you usually you get. So yeah, overall it was really hit and miss when it comes to that, and especially the big miss part is the part when either MLS team are facing against another MLS team that usually get the lower attendance, or if an MLS team is facing against a Liga MX team that are not known to one of the powerhouse of them. So teams like Club America, um Chivas, Tigres, Rayados, and all those teams that were kind of considered to be the powerhouse of Liga MX. If they're not involved, yeah, it's the atmosphere is probably going to be pretty bad throughout the game. Um, the next part is the format. So again, the format I don't like the format in terms of the Leeds Cup, and there's still going to be a debate to this day whether or not if the group stage is absolutely necessary. I think the reason why the group stage is necessary is because obviously, as everybody know, it is a cash cow kind of tournament, and also I for those of you wondering, am I going to put cash cow and the ugly part? No, I'm not going to put the ugly part of this Leeds Cup as one of the reason is the fact that it has this cash cow kind of mindset, because we all already know coming into this tournament that it has that cash cow kind of mentality, and obviously so the group stage is trying to milk as much money out of that as well before we go into the knockout stage. And if we just get rid of the group stage, I don't think Apple TV and the organizer and even MLS or Liga MX is gonna like it, because that's less money for them. But the bottom line is the problem with the group stage in terms of the format is the fact that it's very unconventional. You see like three teams in a single group, and I also would say I'm gonna actually even add scheduling as a big problem too. In terms of the group stage, the scheduling is kind of bizarre in terms of the way it also leads to the irregular format where you have three teams in each of the group, but there's like no possibility where you can have both of these teams play on the final match day of the group stage at the same time. So there could be a situation. It creates a very weird situation that we've seen before, where one team can already completely move on, and the other team probably not going to move on unless they win like a couple of goals at the same time. And then of course the other thing that I hate about the group stage format is the fact that the top two out of the three team basically advance. Basically, you don't really need to do much to advance. You really have to be like the worst of those teams and not move on to the next round. And then there's also cases where I do like the PK shootout kind of thing, where if the game ends in a draw, it has to go to a PK shootout. But I do think that there should be more rewarding the fact that it should be just three points in terms of going to a PK shootout instead of usual two. Though I will say that the argument to that is that, well, now teams are just gonna play for PKs, knowing that there's not gonna be that kind of problems where if you do go to a PK shootout, you don't actually get the maximum of 3 points, and that kind of plays plays a big part, especially with every points being matter. But going back to the scheduling itself, like I said, the scheduling was not very good. Even in the knockout stage, I think the scheduling was a big problem where it was kind of baffling the fact that they decided to schedule those early knockout round game on a middle of the weekend, kind of like right before the weekend. I remember I think the round of 16 they scheduled a game on Thursday and Friday, which that is just baffling considering the fact that you have Saturday and Sunday a good opportunity where you're gonna get all the crowds on the weekend and you don't decided to do that. Yeah, just kind of baffling scheduling. And I know they want to get this competition done as quick as possible, so the league basically restarted. But even then, I mean, it's kind of baffling in terms of some of the decision that they made in terms of the schedule and not capitalizing on those weekends days where it could definitely draw in more fans compared to what we see in the middle of the week. And then the last thing I think is bad is obviously oversaturation. And I was debating whether I should put this in the bad category or the ugly category. I would say it's kind of belong in both part where again, this is the same problem that I think the US Open Cup suffer where there's an oversaturation in terms of these matchups, especially when it's an all MLS matchup. There's also a reason why a lot of these all MLS matchup, not only as I mentioned, the atmosphere is hit and miss, and it's usually on a miss part, well, the attendance for these games are usually among the worst because, I mean, we've seen this matchup before in the regular season. There's really no point of seeing it once it's again happening in the group stage as well. And especially, again, this is also a problem we see in the U.S. Open Cup as well, where because the U.S. Open Cup is very regionalized, you could see a matchup that we've seen it already before. And even some big rivalry games, like, for example, if we see a Seattle versus Portland game in the Leeds Cup group stage, I don't think that's going to draw as many crowd as people think it was. Yes, it is definitely one of the biggest rivalry, but we've seen it before in league play. And even though I know we think that seeing as much rivalry game in a single season might be a good thing, the bottom line of that is that it's actually not a good thing because there's a reason why these rivalry games means a lot. There's only a couple of times where each of these rival face off against each other. So if you have more games that is happening in a single season, then these games kind of started to become a little bit it started to become a little stale, and that the meaning of these rivalry game is not going to be as big as it is because we're already going to be facing them 3 more times. So why in the world are we playing them once again? And I think even the players are getting frustrated too because yes, it's a good. They're definitely going to be up for it against their biggest rival, but they got to be frustrated the fact that we're playing that team again. I mean, we just played them a couple of weeks ago. Now we have to play them in a different competition. So yeah, obviously oversaturation is a big problem in the Leeds Cup, and it's a problem in the U.S. Open Cup as well. But it just kind of exaggerates that it's now even a bigger problem because now that you're seeing that in terms of this competition, and this competition also kind of the biggest controversy is the fact that this competition takes take the U.S. Open Cup and really put it into the back seat. Now, looking at the ugly part, yeah, I think this one you kind of saw it coming. It's got to be the attendance. I mean, the attendance was not great. And I know some people want to say, well, look at the attendance in the beginning. I mean, remember how they put up a stats that the attendance were way up in the first week of the Leagues Cup during the group stage, and that while eventually it did go down, it still was pretty good in terms of the number, and they did had a bit of an increase. Yeah, the problem with that increase is it was only 1%, and the biggest issue I think what people don't understand about the attendance being so good in the beginning is because a lot of these games are included in the season ticket package. Like if you look at all these teams in terms of the season ticket package, even if you decide to opt out of the Leeds Cup and for the rest of the game, you can still be able to get a ticket to go to watch the one of these Leeds Cup game as part of the season ticket holder package, which is why when you see in the beginning with a lot of these games that teams play in the group stage, the attendance were pretty high because a lot of season ticket holders they're gonna, even though they might not be interested in the Leeds Cup, they get free tickets, and if you give someone free tickets to watch their team play, they're not gonna say no on the most part, depending on, or it also doesn't even depending on what competition, or no matter what competition that is. But as the once we saw games that are not included in the season ticket package and only included in the package if you decide to opt in from the Leeds Cup, yeah, that's when you start the attendance started to drop. And I think that the other part, the big problem with the attendance that is not being very good is the next part. It's the high ticket prices. Again, tickets were really expensive in some of these games, and even when you look at the opt in and opt out kind of thing, and especially the opt in package, a lot of the prices that some of these team charge was absolutely ridiculous. Something that even on game days, it was a little bit less than the amount that they of course pay as part of the opt in package. But even if you did decide not to opt in and you want to attend a game, the tickets were absolutely ridiculous, especially in when it comes to some of these games that feature bigger name kind of team, especially against Liga MX's team. Tickets were absolutely expensive, and even in these games that are featuring teams that are like part of the all MLS matchup, especially as we get later into the round, the tickets were still expensive for some of these game, and that I mean I know as we get deeper into the competition, you would expect the tickets to be more expensive. But the problem is that again going back to the oversaturation part, you're playing against a team that you already play but before, and that the interest of going to these games is definitely not going to be much, even if it's going to be now deep into the competition. And that yeah, again, just the tickets prices was just way too high. There's even some games where when MLS team playing against higher Liga MX team like Club America and Chivas, tickets were like $200 and $300. That is just ridiculous in terms of the tickets prices. It's clearly tickets gouging that's going on. So yeah, it doesn't help the fact that obviously the Leeds Cup. I know they're a cash cow tournament. They want to milk every last cent out of that dollar, and even they would say that they'll take it in terms of the attendance being bad so that they can of course get most of that money. But again, I don't think a lot of people think of that, and that again that plays a huge part of why the attendance was just not great whatsoever in terms of the Leeds Cup. And then of course the last part that is the ugly part is the protest that is going on. Um and I mean I put this in the ugly part because I feel like the whole point of the U.S. Open Cup protest or the Leeds Cup protest about how it's damaged the U.S. Open Cup. I feel like not only it was underwhelming, but I don't think it really moved the needle in terms of what these organizers think. In fact, I would say that it feel like it was almost kind of pointless when it comes to these protests. Where if they were gonna really protest in terms of the tournament, we would see more teams actively trying to do so. But instead, as much as I talk about attendance being bad, there were some of these games where the attendance was very high, and even the awareness as well. Again, going back to what I said before, one of the thing that I thought it was going to happen is, as much as there's a lot of noise about this tournament is being bad and that basically we shouldn't watch. Once the game started and once these games started to be entertaining, you can start to see that the public kind of opinions about this competition quickly changes, and it's not a big surprise. We've seen this happen even in the World Cup as well, where it could be a very controversial World Cup taking place in a controversial place, but once the game begins and once it's exciting, that's all we're going to talk about. We basically don't talk about the controversial show stuff. So again, feel like it was really hit and miss, and especially not all supporter group decided to boycott it. In fact, we even see some teams that decided to boycott in the beginning, and then they said, "No, we're not going to boycott. Now we're going to come back to support our team." Looking at you, St. Louis, in terms of their supporter group when they decided to do that. So yeah, overall, if the objective is trying to make a dent and trying to have the organizer, or even just to make Don Gabber think that this is a way to the protest would put the pressure on Don Gabber to make sure that this competition uh doesn't actually take take a damage in terms of the reputation and the prestige of the U.S. Open Cup. I don't think it worked whatsoever, and that's kind of the disappointing part part of this, because there was a chance where, if the protest was strong enough, if people actually just going to continue to bring in the factor to this, that we could maybe see the organizer decide to think about, well, maybe this is not the best idea, and maybe Don Gabbard might find a way to revise the tournament to a way where it can both accompany the original format, the U.S. Open Cup, and also have the Leeds Cup at the same point. Because I don't think this competition is going to go away as much as some people want it to be, but because of the lack of awareness that we saw throughout the tournament, I mean, I don't think anything is going to change. I think we're going to see the same thing that's going to happen next year. The U.S. Open Cup is not going to be feature all the team, and there's even still future about how the format is going to be with that competition. With the way that it feels like the league and Apple TV is really heavily invested in this Leeds Cup, whether people like it or not. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Leeds Cup. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also let me know in the comments below what are some of the things that you like about the Leeds Cup, what are some things that you clearly do not like about the Leeds Cup, and also just the ugly part of the Leeds Cup in this controversial tournament that is. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.